why did you do that? I was like, why were you driving at me like that? He's like, okay, all right. Struck the line and, hey, I just got one thing to say to you. Said fish.
Oh, jeez. And you want to run away.
What? And he starts speeding towards me. I was like, okay. Like,
The thing that held me back the most was second guessing myself. Mm-hmm. You know, that was my like biggest plague.
So, hey, I've got some notes here. First of all, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, listen, we're trying to like legitimately make a difference in the world. You know, I've had some travels throughout the world and, you know, obviously you have as well, right? And, you know, I've had some great experiences. I've seen some incredible things, but, you know, the world is not always, you know, rainbows and rose petals. You know, like there's some suffering out there and, you know, there's a lack of resources in developing nations. And one of those things is energy. And, you know, that's what we're trying to address. Listen, I keep telling Andres, like, hey, I know a lot of surfers. And sometimes they're not the smartest guys in the entire world. And Andres kind of counters me. He's like, every surfer that you introduce me to is an intelligent, squared away dude, you know? And so that's a compliment to you. And I believe I've told you that before. And I think
Andres hasn't hung out with me a lot.
I haven't met the Spicolis yet.
Yeah, they're out there.
They're around.
Yeah, and they multiply in droves, you know? But yeah, so, you know, thanks for being here. And the thing is, it's like, you know, we have a wave energy conversion patent system and now a prototype, and we're looking forward to a testing event. We're trying to raise money as we are a startup, and every startup needs money. You know, that's what we need. That's why we exist, right? And the way we're trying to raise money is, you know, one, to bring exposure to our startup. And we have a crowdfund raise going on. And, you know, we also have options to invest in other ways as well. But the big thing is that exposure so we can talk, meet, and, you know, deal with as many people as possible and try to bring that, you know, what we're doing into the light. My thing is like, okay, you have a wave energy converter, but why would you be talking to a pro surfer yourself, you know? Mm-hmm. And the reason is, you know, and it's kind of a roundabout way, is that I feel surfers really understand the power of waves, you know? I mean,
They've definitely felt them.
They've definitely felt them. You know, I've had 3 concussions. I'm sure you've probably had some pretty gnarly wipeouts as well.
I've had a couple concussions too.
Yeah, and you know, I'm sure you've broken some boards. It's
probably
probably cheaper for you.
Yeah.
Mine I had to pay for. But you know, that's hey, come on, guys. And so yeah, you know, like why surfers, right? And that's why. And then the other thing is like why wave energy, right? And the reason is that wave energy is a potential for a lot of power. But the thing is like you really have to have a really, really experiential understanding of the ocean in order to get that power to shore without having it cost more than solar or wind. And that's how we came about with our different design. What can we do with wave energy? Well, we can make energy, which is pretty obvious, wave energy conversion, right? The other thing that we can do is we can desalinate water. And that's a huge deal because not only do some developing nations need more energy, but they really need clean water.
Right.
It's amazing how many places have a plethora of water. It rains every day, but they don't exactly have access to clean water.
Yeah.
Right? And that's kind of that's a huge deal. Selfishly, we can also power shoreside dredging equipment in the future, potentially, but it shouldn't be a stretch of the imagination that we power this equipment. If we can move sand into the right place, I think, you know, as a surfer, you and I kind of automatically know where that's going to go. Well, if we can move sand, let's make some surf breaks.
Right.
And to me, this is where the excitement lies. And this is where I think surfers really tie into what we're trying to do. 1, they understand the power of waves. 2, they understand the need for energy and how you shouldn't take expensive equipment and put it in the ocean, right? And then also, there's a direct benefit into kind of investing and knowing about wave energy conversion, because if you power that dredging equipment and you make it cheaper and more reliable and more consistent over time, you can really fix some problems out there and add some surf breaks. One of the problems we have right now in Southern California in some very pointed areas is in Malibu and, you know, recently in San Clemente is the fact that erosion is tearing away at the beaches. And it's a problem, you know, Amtrak is, you know, they might have to move their trains inward.
Yeah,
right?
That's kind of crazy.
It's crazy. And then the other thing is that this technology can dredge naturally that sand and kind of solve that problem. All right. And that's kind of where we're at.
Well, you can do, endless amounts of things if you have an endless energy. Energy, it's all about energy.
Taylor, you've been around the world, right?
Yeah.
You've been to crazy surf spots, and they're not always the most developed areas. What do you think wave energy would do to some of those areas?
Well, I think it would, like, let's say you take Indonesia, right? There's so many different, I don't know, there's 1,000 islands or whatever it is in Indo when you look at the whole chain. And there has to be probably, I'd say, few hundred surf camps now, maybe, along, everywhere. I don't know what they deem a surf camp, but there's some that are far out there. There's some that are right by Kuta, and there's Bali, and there's all these hotels on the cliff. And, it just seems like there's a lot of beaches that have energy that no one wants to go to because the waves are terrible. Or there's just a lot of opportunity for them to get that energy that they need for their hotel or their resort, or, maybe, for a place like that, it would be to, put energy into a recycling center that would take, this enormous amount of plastics that are floating around and trash.
Yeah.
So there's all these, with energy, it spawns out in 360 degrees and what you can do with it. There's good energy, there's bad energy, there's neutral, there's, there's so many different variables of what energy can do. Some people use it for bad things. And some people use it for good things, So I think for a place like that, or a place like South Africa, where you have like these small beach towns that, are kind of scattered along the coast and not really near a big city, they have those rolling blackouts that happen a lot.
Yeah.
And so, for some of them, they feel like, when the electricity's down, they're a little bit more vulnerable. There's a little bit more crime down there. There's a little less police force down there. So you're kind of out there on your own, fending for yourself. And I think it brings just more, safety and more regulation for not only people's safety, but also, you can go and use all this energy that's just lapping up on the beach. And why not use it? It's just lapping on the beach and dissipating. So
it's always there.
Yeah, it's an endless supply. Like we haven't really, I think we're really in the beginning stages of energy as far as it goes. So
no, I totally agree. I mean, just during the time that we've had this conversation, we kept, just in the San Diego area, just locally, even here, the waves in La Jolla, we could have easily paid our energy bills, for all three of us for the month.
Right.
Just in the past, 10, 15, 20 minutes.
Right.
Easily, totally within reason, simple mathematics, nothing out of this world that's crazy. Kind of going back to the energy is the thing, kind of like, hey, energy is security. Like, just streetlights.
Yeah. Simple stuff.
Like simple streetlights. I think the big thing for me looking at developing countries in energy is like, I had a little kid in the NICU. I can't even fathom if it was like, okay, my kid's in the NICU, he needs this, this, and this, and this. And then on top of that, I had to worry about a rolling blackout.
Right.
If I never made a dime in this world again, but I knew that I could provide power to, a young child in the NICU to kind of ease the suffering and anxiety of some new parents, a die happy man,
Yeah,
So,
exactly. I mean, bringing energy to a new lit up at night soccer field or baseball field to where the kids are going somewhere at night to do something constructive instead of something destructive.
And it's not hot. Right.
Right.
Because they
not
can't
hot.
play during the day.
That's
That's another big thing is like some of these countries, you're not playing in the middle of the day because it's just too hot.
No, noon to 4, it's
And no construction happens.
Right.
Like in Vegas, they do it at night. So no development.
Yeah,
exactly.
The Middle East as well. So awesome.
That's a great point.
I mean, that was a good question, right? Like, hey, do the like in the SEAL teams, do the senior instructors like get to you and kind of like get after your case, right? Kind of all depends, right? If like you're like flying off the reservation, like they're gonna, hey, dude, you can't do that, And the SEAL teams are famous for some of that, right? We had a guy who he just got tired of being in Bangladesh, booked his own tickets to the Philippines, and just like spent a month there, which is like you're being from the Marines, you're like, what?
Yeah.
And we're like, so we called him like 2 weeks later, like, hey man, we get that you're not liking where you're at in Bangladesh. We understand, but like you kind of gotta like
come back,
get on a plane and come back, or like we're gonna have to like kind of bring this up the chain, dude. So like you gotta bring it, bring it back, right? But then this is kind of like a funny little story that's kind of comical. I was like running on the beach, and there's like this discarded shark that someone had like ran over with. I mean, it was dead and it was dried up, but someone ran it over with a vehicle. But it was still like kind of fresh enough to like stink and be like about this size, right? Mm-hmm. And you know, like kind of like Marine Corps drill instructors, right? Like you have control, but it's rigid. Well, you know, the SEAL teams and BUDS is like really, really loose. And so we're like running all these kids down the beach, and it was a really huge class at the time. Some of the slower students, I picked up the shark, and I was like, they're like, like running with their heads down. So I would sneak up behind them and like put the shark in their face. And like, oh my God, I can't struggle. I'm in. And I'd be like, ha ha. You know, and I'd run up to some other kids and do it again, you know. And like the safety vehicle was like, I could see them looking at me like, what has he got in his hand? And like, you know, the classic, like kind of like being like a young dude, but having fun, but like kind of, you know, the position, kind of having the freedom to do what you want. And this sounds incredibly stupid now that I'm like retelling the story, but I'm like swinging the shark above my head.
Oh, it's a good way to get some guts on you.
Yeah, it totally is, right? So I'm swinging it, and the van, it was actually like a, you know, big SUV with some medical stuff in it. And I hear him like, and he starts speeding towards me. I was like, okay, like, and I throw it, and at the last second, they like swerve out of the way. Uh-huh. And I was like, oh, okay. And so they do like a little. At this point, like all maturity and like adults has like left the picture, right? And there's like 200 students like watching, like, what are these idiots doing, you know? And like, so they do a U-turn to come at me again. I'm doing like bull rider, whatever, right? Bullfighter, like, you know, like thing. So I get the fish, I get it up again, and I throw it at him. I'm like, oh, that's perfect. And it is. It's perfect. It hits him, right? It hits the windshield and shatters it.
Oh, jeez.
And at this exact second, like the world comes and like all the adults come like back into the picture, right?
And you want to run away.
And the biggest guy, and I love him to death, you know, I don't know how obscure he is in keeping his identity, so I won't say him, but his first name is Dave. And he like rolls down, he's driving. He rolls down the window. He's like, why did you do that? I was like, why were you driving at me like that? He's like, okay, all right. So I had to write this like little report, right? Like, hey, you know, damage to equipment and this. And I remember clearly writing like, you know, at this point, you know, I was discarding the fish, and it was a, you know, dynamic training environment. I was throwing the fish back in the ocean, but then there was a vehicle coming up and checking on an injured student, which was all like,
you had to write a report?
Semi-true, but mostly not. Well, yeah, I mean, they had to replace the whole windshield, right? I remember very clearly, for some reason, I wrote like said fish. I was like, so at this time, I picked up said fish, which was a shark, and discarded it towards the ocean. And that is when said fish hit the windshield. And like 6 months later, I guess this like document like wielded its way through with the bureaucratic levels, hit the commanding officer. And I guess he read that and was just like, what are these idiots doing? Like, I know this is not the story. And he comes down to my office, and he like didn't say anything at all except said fish, like said fish. 6 or 7 times in a row. He's like, instructor Lyman, hey, I just got one thing to say to you. Said fish. Said fish. And then like for the next year, he'd be like, you know, I'd be teaching like this class, it'd be super serious, and like, said fish. You know, from like an 06, right? There's a big rank difference, and I'd be like, all right, I got it. You know, so it's pretty good.
That's funny. We had a similar thing, not on, kind of on that same level. So my friend Pat O'Connell, we were on Tavarua for the contest, and at the end we had a big night on the adult beverages. And he got some compromised photos of one of the boatmen that was working there. And he thought it was going to be really funny. And we were leaving that day. He went into the office and put it on everyone's screensaver that worked in the office. And he was not happy about it, right?
That's
so
nice.
We were just laughing, waiting for the Ponga to pick us up with our big old board bags. And you know, we load up like 20 board bags on this thing, and we cross over to the main island, and we get on a plane, fly all the way back to LAX.
Oh my God.
Well, we get to LAX, and we're in customs, we're waiting for our boards, and all of a sudden we're like, whoa, what is that smell? Like, holy smokes. Like, everyone in customs was freaking out because it was like the gnarliest smell. And I'm like, oh my God, dude, it smells like death. Like, and everyone's looking around. We're checking our bags, and he put a dead fish in Pat's board bag.
Nice.
And that had sat in there for about 16 hours, right?
Nice.
On the
and-
tarmac in Fiji.
Yeah. And also it exploded in the board bag.
Oh, because it's because
so
it's an elevation.
So he opens up his board bag and everyone, whoa, and everyone started running. And I just remember Pat took all his boards out of the bag and had fish guts on his brand new boards. And he walked out with these boards and he stuffed his board bag in the trash can and left.
He took the boards though. Oh man.
So yeah, Micah got Pat back pretty good. It was funny.
Okay, so let me tail off on that because I got two things to say. So when you fly out of country, right, sometimes you fly back with your team and you fly out there with your team and you just have an enormous amount of stuff. Like the SEAL teams, we travel well, right? Like sometimes we carry like entire band sets, right? Which is in fact, at one time, like these guys are like packing like a full drum set. I'm like, dude, bro, like really? Like,
drum set?
No, like a full, like I'm talking like a band,
Wow.
and like, I'm like, guys, come on. But like, they kind of like threw it back at me and we kind of ended up putting it all in, right? Anyways, right? And so, but I left from a deployment like a month or two early and we stopped in Kuwait and I was there like, all right, hey, yeah, we got a plane tomorrow. And then tomorrow turned into like next week and then next week plus a day, right? And so every day I would go to this little mini mart and like pick up a trinket or like buy something. And like my bag was pretty full and it ended up starting to be like, all right, if I perfectly pack this bag, like I can probably put another t-shirt or another trinket. But I mean like, it was like, zip, like, all right, that's good, man, that's good. If nobody does it, right? And so, kind of like the same thing. We're like, we travel all the way from Kuwait. I get home to San Diego and I'm like, no bag, waiting, no bag. And my wife's like, so glad to see you. I love you. Like, oh my God. But yeah, seriously, let's get out of here. Like no bag, right? And finally I'm like, I see this huge, like, we're talking like my bag is like the size of this table, right? Like it's a huge bag. But I see this huge glob of white TSA tape.
Oh.
And those dudes unzipped that bag and searched it because it's like, dude, this thing's coming from Kuwait. We should probably take a look at it, right? And so like the thing is that they looked at it and were like, how I would pay good money to go back in time and see what those guys' face expressions were when they're like, how did this dude get all this into this bag?
Sometimes it's better not to open the Jack in the Box.
Pandora's box.
Yeah.
So you flew commercial.
We flew half commercial. We flew a charter flight out of Kuwait to Baltimore.
Okay, gotcha.
And it's called the Rotator. And it's a 747 and it has a mishmash of different people. And I think we stopped in Germany and we picked up families as well.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy. But Pat O'Connell, phenomenal human.
Yeah,
like he's
phenomenal.
a good like you can just tell he's a good person.
Oh, he's one of the best. He's one of my best friends. I've known him for so long. I mean, the guy is just all time. I mean, he's super funny, down to earth, but a very caring, individual.
That's great.
I've burned him twice on accident.
That actually makes me happy.
Public apology.
Dude, a public apology. I know that he has zero memory of this, but it was over like a 4-year period. And I'm like pretty like, I like to be a good dude. I don't think I've earned anything. I've traveled. I don't have local status. And I just kind of don't rub that way. I don't roll that way. But I remember steamer lane. It was like, like in the afternoon, it was low tide. It was sectiony. And I remember seeing this dude take off and like there were some sections. And I'm just like, dude, no way. Like, it's not going to happen. Like in his, you know what I mean? Like, but dude, like Pat O'Connell's a pro. Right? Like most dudes aren't going to make that section.
Right.
Well, I'm like, oh, I got this. So I take off. Next thing I know, like Pat O'Connell is not like, correct me if I'm wrong. He's not 6'5" and 250 pounds.
He's about a foot smaller than that.
Yeah. He's a light dude. You know what I mean? Yeah. He does not need a seatbelt extender flying commercial either way. So he catches up to me and I'm like, oh, dude, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, oh, and he's a pro. Like that's Pat O'Connell. Like I can't believe it. Like, oh my God. So fast forward like 4 years and I, joined the Navy, gone through buds and I'm living in Hawaii and I'm surfing the North Shore, right? And I'm surfing Lani Akeas, another right-hand kind of point break that has lots of sections.
You guys have similar taste.
Yeah.
He likes surfing Lani Akeas, right? So I'm like, once again, I'm like, oh yeah, that dude's dreaming. No way. And like, so I take off and I'm like, and then sure enough, I'm like, Pat O'Connell. And I remember in mind, I'm like, again. Like, Jesus, like, you know, like, sorry, dude, you know, and
what's the etiquette there? What is going on? Like, what's he probably thinking? Like, who's this guy?
I mean, he was just like, I was out of there like an instant, right? And so I'm sure he was probably like, way to go, idiot. You know, like, I can't do my, you know, off the lip or whatever, you know, I was coming around that section. Because he had some speed built up to come around those sections and come up into the lip. So he's probably like, great, dude, thanks. Like, whatever, you know, times 2. You know, I doubt he remembered the first time, but
yeah.
So
Well,
that.
I'm sure he probably didn't even think about it. He was skipped down the beach and, you know.
Yeah, he's a happy lad. Yeah,
He's a happy guy. He's pretty much a happy guy. He's kind of an oxymoron. He's the happiest. He'll tell you how grumpy he is, but really he's laughing and smiling the whole time. But really, you know, you're like,
That's cool.
No,
the happiest grumpy guy in the world.
Yeah, no, he's solid. Big news this week. The finals are, you know, the WSL finals are going to move from Fiji to Trussels, and I know you have some thoughts on that. I'm interested. You know,
You mean from Trussels to Fiji?
yeah. Oh, you know, from this year it'll be at Trussels. Next year it'll be at Fiji.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So I have a pretty crazy question. I know you had some snippets you mentioned about this, right? Felipe Toledo.
Yes.
Like, if he's won 2 world titles, by the way, phenomenal surfer, super fast. It looks like sometimes he's on a completely different speed.
Right. He's incredible. There's
yeah.
no doubt about
There's you know no doubt about it. And sometimes it looks like he could like pull an air and like drink an espresso cup at the same time. It looks like
Probably
his
could.
his rate is like, you're like, dude, he's totally gonna pull it. I have no doubt. You know.
Yeah.
Is he the top ranked right now?
He was for the last 2 years. Okay. Yeah, he took a year off. So my question is, if we keep running at Fiji and he never wins at Fiji, will that put an asterisk next to his world titles?
I think he'll be in the final when he comes back. I think he'll make it to Fiji, and I think he'll have a dig. I think he'll have a go. You know, Fiji's, I feel like, an easier drop, I'd say, than Pipeline. You know, so I still think he's going to have a go, and you know, he has something to prove. He knows that. You know, he gets a lot of comments. I mean, it sucks because, you know, the people that are commenting haven't won anything. So like, there's always that. But
that's the internet.
Keyboard confidence is amazing. But there is something for him to prove. He knows that. He knows that, you know, like he's gotten a lot of backlash for his, you know, performances at Pipe and stuff. And believe me, it's not that he doesn't want to do well there. It's just a matter of like, there's a block in him, you know, physically he could do it no problem. His body physically can do it. It's just something that's in between the ears that's stopping him.
That's hard.
Wow.
That's
Insane.
Did you ever have to deal with any of that? Was there any like, I mean, I know you started off with the back injury. That was huge, right?
Yeah,
when
that
you were
was
a kid.
That was big.
When you were pro, did you have? That
the thing that held me back the most was second guessing myself. Mm-hmm. You know, that was my like biggest plague. I would be worried about making the wrong decision, and I would make the wrong decision because I was worried about getting shit when I hit the beach. You know, everyone was like, why'd you go on that wave? You should have waited for the next wave. And, you know, when you have a set approaching you and you're like, well, should I go on this? It looks pretty good. But what if there's one behind it? And then everyone's like, why didn't you wait? You know, and this was going through my head during the heat. So I wish I could have just gotten out of my own way. And I'm sure for him, it's the same thing because physically his body can do what these other guys are doing. But mentally, something is stopping him from getting there, from going over the ledge.
I think that's age, right? Wisdom, that voice, you know how to quiet it down after a while. You're like, who cares?
Yeah, there's that. And then it might be different for him. You know, it might be when John grew up at Pipeline. I remember seeing John out of Pipeline when he was 8 years old and it was 10 foot. Like what 8-year-olds are out at, you know, think about how old your kids are.
No, yeah, that's like, you know,
the
size of this room,
mean?
you know, like,
right. So I was out there surfing it and I remember seeing him out there, you know, I'm like,
nice.
Oh my God, this, you know, so for him taking off at 12-foot Pipeline is like, yawn, I guess I'll go, you know, under the ledge, whatever, you know. Comfortability, awesome. It's just like what you guys did, you know, like you could be the best race car driver in the world. Let's go see him do what you guys did.
No, there's a lot to be there's a lot to be said for that. Yeah, I want to see Fiji. Fiji's exciting.
Fiji's going to be great. And I hope they keep Fiji on. And I heard they're bringing back J-Bay, which is a definite big bonus, and they should, right? And then they should move it around to, obviously, the last contest of the year needs to be of a wave of consequence. So you could have Fiji one year, you could have Chopu one year, you could have Pipe one year, you could rotate all three of those. Maybe find another wave, like a really slabby right somewhere.
Pohnpei.
Oh man, that wave's one of my favorite of all time.
We're talking to the currently we're talking to the administration there about putting in wave energy. They want us to like reconnoiter 2 different spots.
Wow, see?
Is that Micronesia?
Yeah, Micronesia.
Yeah, that's one of the best waves ever, and that would be amazing to see guys out there. And I like the fact that not a lot of people on tour have been there. Like, they don't have a lot of experience. It's good to see the world's best show up somewhere they're not familiar with and have them figure it out on the spot. Because when you are the best at what you do, you should be able to figure it out quicker than anyone else when you get there, no matter even if you've been there or not.
Is that so? That kind of evens the playing field, right? So, and then highlights the skills.
Well, yeah, and just it pushes people. And I remember, like, for me, the Rip Curl Search event, they would pick a new spot. I got more excited to go somewhere I've never been. Some events, after being on tour for 20 years, you feel like Groundhog Day. Well, I've been here. I know what this is all about. You know what I mean? Like, it's cool.
Obviously, Huntington Beach being like the number one.
Yeah. Well, at least from there I could drive home. But no, it's just like that excitement. I mean, that's why we became surfers. We wanted to travel. It was about traveling to get perfect waves, and then the competitive side of things was like a vehicle for that.
Yeah.
And then the vehicle for that became, for me, a little mundane. And then, especially like midway through, like a 10-year mark, I was ready or I almost retired at 2007, I think. But then, because all my friends were getting off tour, but then like Mick came on tour and I got on Rip Curl, and that made it fresh for me again and exciting. Mm-hmm. I had a new sparring partner. All my other partners bailed. They're done with the tour. Shane, Ross, Rob. They're all gone. And I'm like, oh, this isn't as fun as it used to be, because I like hanging out and surfing with my friends. And then becoming close with Mick made it like, oh, this is fun again.
Nice.
Get to spar with a younger dude, and the fastest surfer in the world. And, we sometimes.
Yeah, he's a machine.
He's a machine. Yeah, for sure. We had that in common. So we had a lot of commonality on the way we ate, the way we trained, the way we liked to travel. So it made it fun.
Yeah, and to go back, kind of to bounce back a couple minutes and talk about Felipe Toledo, I would like to say, once again, phenomenal surfer, and he trains a lot. And, the year, he came close to winning I think he either won it, or the year before he came close to winning. He went to Chopu knowing like, hey, this is one of my spots that I need to train on and work on. And he's spending extra time there. So, I give a guy a lot of credit for that,
Yeah.
Like, hard work is always.
It's just, is it any different? You take a 2-year guy in the Marines or the Navy, he's been 3 years maybe, and you take someone on one of your teams that's been there for 10, and whenever you get somewhere, you're going to figure out shit faster than he is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's just, you're going to be able to read people, read situations. You're going to be like, okay, I don't need to be told not to go over there and do that. I already know that's not the guy I need to talk to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is...
that's why wisdom's the big upgrade to knowledge.
Yeah. Okay, I got some crazy questions here. I think you'll like this, right? Which surfer in your era, right, would kill it right now if we just could magically take them from your era, make them 20 years old, and put them on the tour? By the way,
Taylor Knox.
Sans yours truly.
No, I'm not going to pick me.
And of course, obviously the easy pick is always Jimmy Slade,
Well, yeah, I mean, he's still there. I guess, kind of, but we won't mention Kelly because, he's Kelly. So that's a different ballgame. But I would say, someone that was doing some big airs and that was very quick, lightning fast was Kalani Robb.
Yeah.
Like when he was at his peak, I mean, he was a phenomenally great surfer, well balanced, was doing big airs back in the 90s. I think he did that one huge rotation in one of Taylor Steele's movies at Rocky Point on the left, riding the Special K board. And he I think he could fit into this genre of like what's going on now, where you have Ethan Ewing and who is lightning fast and powerful. And then you have John just next level. I think, there's John Medina, and then there's kind of like everybody else, like to me, what I'm seeing, Ethan's there too. I would say John, Ethan, and Medina are kind of, even though Ethan's not having his best year, just a couple of bad breaks, but the airs that John and Gabe can do consistently, and with the style and power that they have, and they charge. So it's really, to me, they've kind of broke away from the pack.
The transition out of air back to speed that John did in El Salvador was incredible.
Yeah.
Because he's flying in the air, and then like it's instantaneous. He's throwing some spray.
Oh, there's even his carving and stuff is really, it's insane, and he's pushing it to max levels.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
I'd love to see the top deck of his board after a contest. I'm sure there's dents all over it.
Yeah, I'm sure. He's not a small dude.
No, he's
like
not.
6'1" or something.
No, yeah, he's
pretty
got
tall
some good size.
What's the optimal size? Like in race car driving, you got small guys, right? In horse racing,
and
small
Italian.
guys.
They got to be Italian.
In surfing, does height, weight, does that make a difference?
Yeah, I think it does. Mm-hmm. You can be too small, and it's hard when you're too tall. But people still make it work. Mm-hmm. Take Pat O'Connell, for example.
Yeah.
He's a smaller dude, and he was on tour for, 10 years or whatever it was. And there's guys that make it work for sure. And then you got tall guys like, Owen Wright, who's 6'4". Yeah. You got this Ryan Callahan kid who's really tall.
He's like, I want 6'2", 6'3".
Yeah. He rips.
Yeah.
He is such a good surfer, and he's so nimble and really good, huge airs. And that's a big dude. There's a lot of limbs there to keep in control.
If the World Tour was only regular foots, and you could pick the spots, as a former regular foot, right? You could pick the spots in the World Tour. Looking at it from a regular foot's perspective, what 10 spots in the world would you have the tour be on?
10.
T-Pass. That would be one. J-Bay for sure. Lowers would be in there for sure. You got to have a classic California wave in there.
Yeah.
Maybe Rincon. I don't know. Backdoor.
Okay.
For sure.
This is the test. Are there 10?
Yeah. The Snapper. That's Akira Snapper. That whole zone is incredible. Let's see. I kind of like going left, right? So do I have to pick rights?
No.
Oh, okay.
I like
Skeleton Bay. That would be for sure at the top of the list.
And you've surfed there, right?
No.
Oh, really?
No, it's high on the bucket list. That one looks amazing. Chopu, that would definitely be one. Because going backside tube riding is just so much fun. And one more. I feel like I'm forgetting
You say
somewhere.
Rincon?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I haven't been there. I haven't been to this spot, but I would say Morocco. I would love to go to Morocco.
Morocco looks like Santa Cruz with the desert behind it. Some of the waves there.
Yeah. But they have a lot of waves there, I think.
Morocco looks cool.
Looks amazing.
Follow us. More interesting things to come.